Welcome everyone to the February 14th Utilities Committee meeting. We're going to get started right away with the Foster Pilot Project update. Jack, is that yours?
It is mine. There has been legislation introduced this session to solve some of the issues that have arisen because of Ecology's take on the Foster bill that was originally put out there, that we have done the Foster project under. There is not a definition of what that model error should be. And so some of the stakeholders, like the tribal representatives and fish people, Fish and Wildlife, think that we should augment or mitigate a modeled stream impairment down to nothing. And we know that there's a model error. And I think here comes Tony. I think I've reported to you in the past that every place there was a fork in the road, we went on the conservative side. So we're very comfortable with only augmenting. We started out with 0.5% of an in-stream flow. Anything less than that, we were not going to augment or mitigate for. Then because the tribes and Fish and Wildlife kind of pushed back, we went, okay, well, we'll compromise. We'll go down to 0.4. Well, they're still trying to say that any modeled impact on a stream is an actual impact. And so there needs to be some definitions for that. What we have chosen to do is go ahead and move forward with our reports of examination to Ecology, and hopefully Ecology will issue an opinion within a reasonable amount of time. And if we have done everything according to the Foster legislation, then we have stand a very good chance of having some legislative relief in the next year. Not this year's legislature, but next year's, because it's going to take a while to wind through Ecology. So we're just kind of staying the course, knowing that there is going to be some challenge to the reports of examination that we write. Either that, or we're going to have to mitigate or augment for everything, which is going to, it could increase our cost by an order of magnitude even. I really don't have any idea what exactly those numbers would be, because we haven't identified projects that would mitigate or augment for those streams that we declared not a valid error, not a valid impact. So
it's clear as mud.
Yeah.
So basically, we've invested in a project where the rules keep changing. And what I don't quite understand, Jackie, is that we are one of, what was it, 5 entities that got involved in the project.
Yes.
What is happening for the cities and entities that aren't part of the project? Are they just not going to have water rights? What benefit do we even have having suffered through this whole thing?
Well, without being a part of the Foster project, you absolutely would not get water rights. And until these questions are solved, nobody is going to be getting water rights processed. So being one of the 5 Fosters put us out in front of everybody else. The other Foster projects, one of them we can negate right out. Just let's not even consider it, because it's up in Whatcom County, and it is an irrigation for cooperative for farmers. So it's not potable water at all. Okay. The other 3, or there's one that has had its water rights issued, and that's Yelm. Okay. And Yelm is where the Foster lawsuit came out of. The Ecology had issued a water right to them. It was challenged. And then the Foster legislation came along with the potential fix for it. And so they just had to do some tweaking to their plan in order to make it fit the Foster language. And in the meantime, they negotiated with they were able to negotiate with the 2 tribes that they were involved with and get their water rights passed. So they have them. The other 2 are Spanaway and Sumner, and there is not yet an accepted model for them to even work on. So they're way behind. The difference between the other three Fosters, Yelm, Spanaway, and Sumner from us, is that all three of them have a major river that they can augment or
Oh,
work with. We don't have that. So
I
we
see.
have so many little creeks that we have to take into account and look at the impacts on, which they don't have. They have a major river to look at. So that's the big difference.
So they weren't even subject to the model that isn't even working.
Right. Right. That model that's not working is the Kitsap model. The problem is that some of the other basins or WIRAs, water resource inventory areas, have models, but the models are all based on a USGS modeling program that is not meant for these minute types of investigations. It's meant for a global look at water supply in an area, not for, half of a cubic foot per second of water use.
I see. So we aren't going to see anything until next year, which puts everything on hold then when it comes to the well.
Well,
13.
we will see some things. We will see the reports of examination, which is actually the paperwork, the documents that actually go to ecology for them to consider. And so we will see that sometime in the next few months. And then we basically have to sit and wait for ecology to work on them.
I see. All right. I heard something about purchasing land near a tributary kind of thing. I mean, there are all kinds of suggestions being made about how to handle this.
Yeah, the thing is, like I said, there's a myriad of streams. If we look at it the way that the tribes and Fish and Wildlife want us to look at it, is that, like I said, every single tiny impact we have to do something about. If we look at only the streams that we have an impact over that 0.4% of the in-stream flow, then I believe there are 6 of them that we have. We're looking at projects, and those projects are what will be in the reports of examination. Those projects, one of them was to, we've been looking at all kinds of projects. One was to buy a property that's in a small Class A system out in the Minter area that has frontage on a creek. And we would just take the house out and use the existing domestic water service to augment the stream there. That's one project. There's all kinds of different things that we've been looking at. So,
okay. All right. Well, any other questions on that one? Anybody?
Yeah, I guess other than the obvious, I have a question. Can you give me a definition of augmenting the stream? Is that literally just putting water into the creek, or is there other opportunities for augmenting?
Well, we've been looking at some other opportunities. Generally, it does mean just adding water to a creek. Augmenting is, we have augmentation stations right now on Ross Creek and on Anderson Creek that are currently functioning for our well 11 rights. And that's what we're doing, is just dispersing water into the ground, dechlorinating it, and then putting it into the ground in order for it to go into the stream and increase the in-stream flow. There's another way of looking at augmentation whereby you impound stormwater and then treat it to standards, and then you can augment a stream with that. And that versus the other term that I keep using is mitigation, which means we would do things like reestablish a riparian zone around a creek that will provide shade for fish to spawn in and things like that. So those are the two basic ways that we can create better fish passage. Mark, I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just going to follow up. What I'm hearing is that the augmentation has to be a number of different streams. We can't do one large event at a stream, i.e. the Blackjack Creek, for example, that would compensate for the impacts to the 3 or 4 smaller ones.
We think not, John, but the thing is, that's one of the other questions that ecology just simply won't answer, because the legislation was silent on it. And that is that, if we're augmenting or mitigating in a basin, in a stream basin, over and above what we would need for that basin, can we get credits in another basin? And that's a question that hasn't been answered.
Mhm.
Mark,
Mark has his hand.
Yeah, does this have anything to do, Jackie, with the depth of the wells as well? How far out, how expansive we have to look at, and how many creeks we have to look at augmenting or mitigating?
in a way, when we have a shallow well, it impacts the streams around it to a much higher percentage, but it impacts many less streams. Now that we've gone really deep, we have very small impacts, but over a larger area. So that's why we have so many that we're impacting, because we went so deep for these good aquifers, but we're barely impacting them, and yet that's considered an impact. So
Thank you.
Another question, Jackie, is there a quantifiable amount of augmentation? I mean, is it equal to what we pull out of the ground in gallon each, or is there some formula that determines how much we have to put into the streams to compensate?
there is a formula. There's a number for each stream that we are impacting more than that 0.4% of in-stream flow. And there's a grid that is included in the report from Robinson Noble, showing how much in each stream. And it's actually goes by the summer months or the drier months, and then what they call the shoulder seasons, which are spring and fall. And then in the winter, there are different amounts. So we would be adjusting the augmentation stations based on that chart.
Can you give me just a ballpark as to, are we talking millions of gallons, thousands of gallons, hundreds of gallons?
No, we're talking, I think the biggest one was Blackjack, and I think that was 32 gallons a minute.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Okay. We ready to move on to the SROF project? SROF? However you say it.
Sure. On to better news, yes. Okay, so on the Shroof water main replacement, the bids have come in for that. We're looking at a construction proceeding on May 1st of this year. This is to replace the dilapidated asbestos cement pipe that runs in between Sydney and Tacoma. The awarded contractor is KR Homes. This actual contract will go to council on March 14th for approval, and the bid amount was $317,000 and $317,542. The engineer's estimate was $350,000 to $450,000, so we actually came in under the engineer's estimate there. So that's a positive.
Wow. If I can interject here, three
Go ahead.
blocks are under 350,000. That's a whale of a deal.
Yeah. So yeah, that'll be taking place this summer. We're looking forward to that. That AC main has been a problem for the past 12 years that I've been here. We've had multiple breaks on there, so it'll be nice to get that AC main out of there and replace it.
Will the streets be closed then for a couple of months?
No, I presume that it's only going to be a partial closure, and they'll probably do it in segments. I haven't
Okay.
seen the construction schedule on that yet, so I'm not quite sure on how they're proposing to do it.
Okay.
Just a
John.
comment, Tony, that obviously that street is fairly important for the Little League organization.
Mhm.
So I would hope that we could communicate with them a schedule as soon as we know it, so that they can kind of plan around it.
For sure, we could do that.
Thank you.
Good thought. Okay.
Any more on that? Or moving on. Well, 6 and 7, the chlorination equipment.
Okay. Johnny, do you want to talk about this, or do you want me to?
Go ahead.
Okay, well, this picture right here is a picture of the chlorination, the treatment equipment, here's the fluoride and here's the chlorine at well 7. This is what's in the room that's right down by the police station in that little building. You can see that it's pretty antiquated. This takes tablets of chlorine in this, and it makes a solution of chlorinated, high test chlorinated water, which is then injected into the system. We're having some issues, just like we did with well 6 several years ago. I was told we're having some issues now with keeping the chlorine levels up where they're supposed to be in the area around the courthouse and basically between the Melcher pump station and City Hall. And so my proposal is to get a chlorine generation piece of equipment, the same that we have at well 9 and other places, to replace this old antiquated chlorinator, both at well 7, this one here, and the one at well 6, and get away from this tablet system, which is not very reliable.
Yeah, when we replaced the last one, this was originally meant just to be a temporary. We haven't got it replaced, so we're looking at pursuing that.
Do you have an idea on the cost on that?
I'm guessing probably 30 to 50,000
Per unit.
per unit. Correct.
Okay.
Jackie, I would assume, correct me if I'm wrong, but if we're injecting chlorine at this point, and by the time it reaches up on the hill, it's not as strong as it needs to be, does that suggest that we're going to have to increase the strength down here so that when it arrives up there, it will be at the correct level?
Excuse me. Well, no, not exactly. The problem is that we get low chlorine readings all over that area. And we've been doing some investigation, and we've discovered that we have a lag in the time when the well pump, or not the well pump, but underneath this floorboard is a clear well that has water in it that comes from well 7, which is over at the base of Port Orchard Boulevard. And this water sits here untreated until it's needed in the system. And then a pump kicks on and the water goes through this pipeline and it's injected with both chlorine and fluoride. For some reason, as soon we discovered that there's a lag in the time that the pump turns on and the chlorinator starts. And then there's a lag between the time that the chlorinator shuts off and the pump shuts off. So we've got that problem. We also know that we have a problem in this clear well underneath here where there's some wood in it. We reviewed some tapes or videos of the last time we had it cleaned and had divers in there. And so we're going to take this offline. We're planning the job now. It looks like probably in the next couple of months, we're going to take this whole system offline and take those boards out of there. There's basically a board all the way around the inside of that thing that looks like it was there for people to walk on, maybe when they were cleaning it in the past, years and years and years ago. We're going to cut all of that out of there, manually clean the clear well, and then recook it, put high test chlorine in it, let it cook for a few days and start it up again. And we're increasing the amount of flushing that we're going to be doing on Kitsap Street. So we think that between those 3 prongs, those 3 legs, we'll be able to solve the low chlorination problem. But one of the things that we want to do is get a more reliable system in here for chlorine.
That makes sense. It really does. Good. I'm sure we planned for that expenditure. So
The chlorinators, no, we may,
Oh.
I don't know yet. We may have to come back to council for a budget adjustment for that. I'm not sure about that yet. Because we do have some money for water treatment. I just don't know if we have enough.
I see.
But as far as the rest of the project, we're discovering every day something around this system that needs attention. I mean, let's face it, it was put in the 40s,
Oh, yeah. Right. Okay. Sounds good. Marina pump station update.
Okay, so for Marina, the memorandum of understanding with the Port of Bremerton has been completed for the encroachment onto their DNR lease area. The State Environmental Review Process, or the SERP, has been approved with the Department of Ecology. which is a condition of the loan requirement that we received. The LDAP and the SDP and the building permit have been at least submitted into DCD for approval. The parking agreement, we're still in negotiations with the Port of Bremerton on what we're going to do with lots 3 and 4 and the displacement of their tenants down in lot 1. I know the mayor's been having some discussions with the Port of Bremerton on that. The 100% plans that we sent to Ecology, we're still waiting on for approval. And the DNR leases for the Port of Bremerton and the city, we're going to start working on in the early to mid 2024. I know the lease that we have for that area terms on June of 2024. So we'll start working on those early next year.
Okay.
At this point, that's pretty much where we're at until we receive approval from Ecology on those 100% plans that we submitted.
And with the thought that we are going to get started this year on that project.
Correct. Yes, we're hoping to go out to bid in April.
And it should be completed this year as well?
No, that's a 2025, I believe.
Yes.
2025 completion? Okay.
It's 18 months construction timeline, I believe.
Okay. Gotcha. All right. Any other questions on that one? Anybody? Moving on to the asset management system.
So that I assume you want me to take this, Tony?
Yep, this is your field.
Okay, well, I included this this graphic here because I wanted to kind of have something to help you understand what we're doing. We are working, there's kind of two planks to this. There's an asset management plan, which is citywide, looks at all of our assets, looks at asset retention, looks like strategy and planning, decision making, organizational, everything about it. Okay. And that is kind of an umbrella with 3 spokes to it. As Mark would have said, there's the GIS system, there's a computerized maintenance management system, and there's the records retention. That's what we've been looking at. And underneath that umbrella, the umbrella itself is a plan that we hired a consultant team to work on. And we're wrapping that up now. I just today received 2 of the final deliverables from them. I still have 1 more that's due to us. But within that, one of the pieces of it is the computerized maintenance management system. Now, some people feel like we should have the asset management plan in place before we look at the computerized maintenance management system. I look at it, and kind of, Tony, I think you'd agree with me, we look at it differently, that we need to have that computerized maintenance management system in order to adequately create the asset management plan, so that we know, if you look at this wheel right here, we acquire, we operate, we maintain, and then we dispose of. This is what happens within the computerized maintenance management system. We operate and maintain is mostly, first we acquire, get it listed in there, and then we know what our expected life is, what operational issues we need to take care of, and what maintenance issues. And that comes out of the computerized maintenance management system in basically a series of work orders that are assigned to staff members. And then once when we're doing the operating and the maintaining, then when the useful life is over, we know that we can make the decision then to dispose of it and replace it, or upcycle it into something else or whatever. But this really is the core. Without this system, this computerized maintenance management system, it's difficult for us as managers to know what we're going to need for budget, to know how many meters were replaced, to know how many meters we have yet to replace, to know how many times we visited a specific lift station. You know, all of those things are functions of the computerized maintenance management system that we use as a management tool to make sure that our systems are being adequately maintained and operated. So I would advocate for once we get the final deliverable of the asset management plan, which will go to you guys for adoption, that we move forward with purchasing the computerized maintenance management system. I don't have a dollar figure yet. I just received today a document from the consultant with a potential 6 systems that they have recommended that we look at them. And we know we have to go through regular bidding rules and everything. But they've also given us a script that we can use to interview these software providers, so that we know that we are comparing apples and apples. So I just wanted to bring this to you so that you would be prepared that we are going to start looking at these CMMS programs.
Do you have any idea on the expense of this?
Boy, it really, really depends on how robust of a program we end up recommending for the city. Once we look at them, I mean, you can get little programs for, maybe $5,000, just a few $1,000s, or you can get a Cadillac for $100,000. They're all over the place. We need to go through the exercise of interviewing and looking at them to understand what's going to be the best fit for our uses.
Is this something that we budgeted for?
It is.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Good.
the CMMS is going to give you the metrics to make the long-term financial decisions of, does this water main need to be replaced, or does it have significant life and we can just continue to do, operational maintenance on it. So,
Okay.
what was the other ask? I had something else to say. Now I forgot it.
Well, if I can continue, this other document that I kind of poked in there too, is from the draft asset management plan. And I wanted to put this in because this the stuff that's down here in red is something that we're doing differently than the consultant, than their stock, if you will, their stock definitions. Because the way it's going to work best for us is for us to have this implementation team, which is going to be the people that are actually boots on the ground doing, excuse me, the data input and understanding how to put the work orders together and whatnot to make the CMMS work. Aside from that, we're going to have this asset management team, which is going to be the decision makers. That would be like Noah and Tony and the mayor. And then they would come up with what the asset management plan or policies are going to be, and then come to you with them. But underneath that would be this implementation team.
And then
Okay.
the initial rollout would be just with the sewer module to start out with, because it's obviously a learning process. Plus, that's a regulated utility with certain requirements that we have to meet, and it's going to be great for the work order system and to actually track and be able to pull metrics from that to make, financial decisions for the budget and what we need to do in the future.
Okay. Sounds good. Interesting. You pulled that chart from, was it England?
This
Is having organizational spelled with an S rather than a Z. I'm wondering where that would be from. Just a bunny trail.
this particular thing was from Australia.
Oh,
They
there.
have-
I
They
figured.
have a very, very robust asset management program in Australia.
Gotcha. Thank you. All right. Water metering systems.
Okay, well, hopefully you had a chance to look this over. I tried to be as brief as possible with this. This is such a big question. Right now, we touch reads, but we still have quite a few manual read meters in the system. This is something that 1980s. Okay, so we're kind of spinning our wheels, I think, by even installing new touch read meters. So I really think that we need to look at where we want to go for the future. And actually, Noah is the one that asked us to look into this during budget process, to look into what other types of metering systems we might have than this. And what it is you have a laptop that sits in your truck, And when you start the program, it has a program on it. When you start it, it shows a map, and you drive around, and you have to drive fairly slowly, but you drive around the system and a receiver on it. And as it, so you know where you are in the route and what meters you have yet to get. And then you basically take a thumb drive into the utility billing office, give it to them. I mean, the bills can come out. The next one is a wireless system, which has real-time info, and it's basically a wireless system that at City Hall, nobody has to drive around. At City Hall, they can basically push a button and it will grab all the reads, all the current reads, and be able to build. And that's two-way communication, which means that there can be a customer portal. So the customer not only can billing have the bill, I could look up every morning. I can call up and look and see if anybody's has a leak because it's been a constant use on their meter, overnight. A customer can also log in when they get the appropriate credentials. They can log in and look at their own usage. I will warn you that some people see this as Big Brother. Use of these types of systems, they can be very, very in depth on what they look at. They can get right down to the point where we could meter off.
That may be good, and that may be bad. You've
Well,
just said it. Some people would feel really uncomfortable with that. All kinds.
And that's very expensive.
Jackie, can I ask a question on those wireless and two-way? How is the communication made? I thought I read one of them cellular or both of them cellular.
There are multiple ways of communicating. The wireless can be a radio transmission. It can be a cellular. It can be like you do a radio path study to find which one works the best for us for that and a backup, just the same as SCADA.
Yeah, I was going to mention we would need to have some sort of a backup plan for that wireless option just in case.
Mhm.
Well, and one of the reasons that I asked is we run into this with the transit. We've got all kinds, and it all communicates in real time. And it costs us about $35 a month per bus for this cellular connection. So there's a cost that when you look at these types of systems, and if you're going to be using the commercial cellular world.
So we will be getting more info how we would go about replacing existing meters.
Right, and we have to identify census if we can at least do part of the city as a pilot project. Just want to keep you apprised of, the different technologies out there, and then
Well, I guess we've all become, and we try to do as long as we can before.
And also billing's mindful of.
The communication and what and running around that it takes there as well. By
days off a month.
Yeah.
Any more on that one?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah,
Because I think she's the host of this meeting.
It's at the mouth of Arnold.
Mhm.
Based on what we've been told from insider knowledge from somebody that used to work at West Sound, that when we lose power for a significant amount of time in that area, their lift station has no backup generator. So the way it's oriented is their wet well will fill up and then discharge into our sewer and then go down to Bay Street lift station. So we're actually taking their sewer if they have issues. So the question is with the redevelopment of Bay Street, do we continue, having that interconnection with that system, or do we somehow work out a deal with them, to help facilitate the reconstruction of the Bay Street lift station if we're going to be their backup supplier?
Well, and we're back now, by the way. I apologize for that. My internet connection went wonky. But the other question is, when we are when that power failure happens and we end up taking their sewage, that means that we're paying for all that sewage that's going through our connection to the plant.
Right.
Do they reimburse us somehow?
No, I don't. Anything that's been ever addressed.
But they don't really charge us per gallon. It's based on our water usage. I mean, there's an expense, obviously, to taking their sewer and pumping it back to the treatment plant, which seems kind of dumb, but I don't know that they would be charging us extra because we're taking more gallonage to the plant, some of which is theirs.
Right.
Well, the other issue too is that lift station is very, I mean, if we're taking all of the sewage, this is all the sewage from Annapolis. And so if it's all coming back through that Bay Street lift station, that system is going to be overwhelmed, especially
Right.
if they redevelop West Bay Center and where the Kentucky Fried Chicken is.
Are you able to pull that map up, Jackie?
I'm going to try to. My
Okay.
connection is really what I can get here.
I like,
Share my
It's
screen.
basically everything on that hillside from Veterans Park down, which also includes the Veterans
Mhm.
Home.
If you
which is
guys could please
significant.
cameras, it'll use less bandwidth.
Okay.
Thank you.
what is it you want us?
Turn off your cameras. There. Do you see that map?
No,
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 You don't see the map?
no, Jack, it's not showing. I actually have a
here
map.
it comes.
Yeah, I think it's loading now.
Okay.
I do have that map up on my computer.
There
Okay.
it is.
Mhm.
Okay, so everything in light blue
Mhm.
heading up the hill is going down to that lift station, and then they have a black line that runs along Bay Street to the treatment plant. And that's their force line.
So
they're-
The black line is our force line?
one of them should be theirs. They should have their own. We should have our own. I'm not sure which one's ours and which one's theirs, if there's two there.
I can only see one black line, and I thought that was our force main.
That could be ours, but I presume theirs runs in the same orientation as ours.
hmm.
Yeah, I would assume so as well. Now there's two color blue, one on the east side of the Veterans Home is darker than that on the left side or the west side.
Yeah, the
Either-
darker one is a gravity line that goes straight to the treatment plant.
Oh.
I was under the impression that the Veterans Home must be connected to that because they're going directly down into the plant.
Yeah, I think Darren said that part of the veterans home goes directly down, and then the other section, it looks like there's a leg on the west side of the treatment plant that actually goes down to that little lift.
Right, right.
Mhm.
Have we brought this to the attention of the
Listen.
water district, the sewer district?
We have not at this point.
Okay, well, I think I would suggest we start with bringing that's come to our attention that when there's a problem, this is happening. So maybe they need to work on a solution for their system.
Right.
yeah, that
Yeah, we
makes
just
sense to me.
discovered this, and so wanted to bring it up to you guys.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's pretty clear that the Marina Pump Station is our problem that we're working on. So I would assume this is their problem that they need to work on.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Is there anything else for today? And how, are you going to actually, who's going to be doing that? How's that going to be handled?
Me and Jackie will coordinate on who's contacting West Sound.
Okay. Probably go to a SAC meeting too, huh?
And then I think we had a question on the future agenda items. We're sort of running through the list and trying to wrap our heads around the Bay Street lighting and marquee,
Mm-hmm.
the utility committee thing, or we're just wondering why it was on the list.
Good question.
I don't know. I'm not sure why it was on the list.
I mean, it's not a problem, I don't think, but maybe we should just get clarification from the whole group who wants to take that one on.
Actually, did it have to do with working on the electricity on the south side? Weren't there some issues? I mean, I think that the north side was worked on. Tony, you would know that better than anyone.
Right.
Weren't there still some issues on the south side of Bay Street that we needed to address just to keep the power on?
Yeah,
during
I think
festivals?
the south side was fine from it actually operating as designed. There was I think the northwest block, we still had some issues going on there, but obviously we haven't, budgeted for that. So maybe
Right.
look into that. We can have future discussions on it.
I think
Based
that
on
that
the
may be.
title,
Oh, go
based
ahead.
on the title, it suggests street lighting,
Oh,
which is a much bigger deal, and the marquee.
That's as
So
well.
to me, that's more of the
Oh.
structure itself and the wooden poles, and how do we deal with that moving forward?
mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's right. They're practically rotten off, aren't they?
Pretty close.
Mm. All right.
We just
That's-
didn't understand why it was on the utility committee agenda.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I'm not sure where it would go. It's definitely not a finance committee issue. I know that.
Mhm.
Well, it may be at some point, but for a different reason.
Hmm.
So
Yeah,
it's
I'm not
either
sure.
going to be utility or the streets.
Mhm. And we didn't have a streets committee, what, 2 years ago, 3 years ago? So maybe
No.
that's why it got put on here.
Could be, but that's I think a relatively recent with this issue of street lighting, when we talked about the style of street lighting around the community center project.
Mm.
Well,
Well, I
this
think-
item has been on this future agenda items list since I started with the city.
Mhm.
Oh,
Mhm.
well,
Yeah.
do you think it's
dealing with the marquee has been on the list almost as long as I've been in the city. So
Forever. I don't know where it belongs.
do you think it's on the list going hand in hand with the Bay Street utility plan right below it?
No, those were completely separate and came on.
yeah,
Yeah, those are new.
Okay.
Sorry, we can't
there
fill
was
you
a
in.
meeting.
I just don't know. Yeah. All right. Do we need to set a date for the next meeting, or is it just going to remain to be determined?
Well,
Uh,
Tony, that storm plan, was there a plan to bring that storm plan before them next month?
yes.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah.
So-
So next month for sure.
Ne- Okay. And
That will
let's
be
see,
the
so
well,
the 14th?
yeah,
Correct.
February and March are the same when it's not a leap year.
Right. So March 14th is when we'll have the next meeting.
14th, I will be out of town, so you can find a sub for me, or however you want to deal with it, Cindy.
Well, what about the 21st then? How does that work for everybody?
21st, we have a finance committee at 5.
Okay, the 28th.
Bingo.
March 28th it is.
Does that work for you, Mark?
Mark?
I think we have a transportation meeting at 5 on the 28th.
Well, there you go. Then you can talk about the marquee, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, that's right. There's a transportation committee meeting on the 28th as well.
I wonder if the transportation meeting could be swapped for the 14th. You think we could convince someone to try to do that?
Yeah, I can talk to Chris about it.
That would be excellent if we could just swap those two.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, we'll try to look for the 28th and see if we can get transportation to move to the 14th.
Okay, so I will wait to let Janine know until we find out if those meetings can be swapped.
That'd be excellent.
Okay.
Thank you very much. And I guess we'll see you all in just a little bit.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, sounds
Okay,
good.
yeah.
Are you
Bye-bye.
attending?
Thank you. Happy Valentine's Day.
You too.
Thanks.
Thank you. Same to you.